Next up is the final Brit, you'll be pleased, Mr. Justin King. Good friend of mine, my travel partner, my room partner. I won't tell you his disgusting habits. Some people say I'm a little bit high on life, sometimes could be a bit intense. I say, you don't want to meet Justin King there. So Justin King is a leading financial planner in the UK. He's also one of the lead trainers for the Kinder Institute, helping people with financial life planning. You're still standing at the back, mate. Come down. I introduce you to Mr. Justin King.
Thank you. Thank you. I've really enjoyed meeting quite a lot of you already, so thank you for coming. I'm having a fantastic time again in Cape Town, so it's great to be here. What do the white rhino, the green turtle, and financial advisors have in common? They're all in danger of being an extinction. Now, some of the answers I've had to that question are they're all thick-skinned. They all move a little slowly. And like the white rhino, I like to charge a lot. Like the green turtle, I make a mean soup. Carrot and coriander, if you want to know. But I think I have the answer to how we can prevent ourselves from being extinct and how we can absolutely prosper in this wonderful profession that we have. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story. When I was born, I was unwanted. I was unplanned. My parents, within hours of my birth, put me in an orphanage. At 4, I was adopted. They say in this business that you need to be an early adopter. I was an early adoptee. My relationship with my new parents wasn't brilliant. And at the age of 10, 11, they sent me away to boarding school. And at that boarding school, I wasn't a brilliant academic student. And as the chalkboard scratched on in those dreary maths classes, I dreamt of my future financial advisor. No, I didn't. I had higher aspirations to that. I dreamt up in the skies. I wanted to be. I'd seen these World War II flying aces. I'd read Biggles. I read a book. I don't know if you know the chap called Douglas Bardo, Reach for the Sky. Hugely inspirational from someone who lost his legs in an aerobatics accident and then fought his way back into the military, back into the Air Force, and then became a fighter ace. This man provided inspiration to me in quite dark days. So I had a plan. I had a vision of what I was going to be. I had a plan. So at 16, we do our qualifications in the UK, and we did something in those days called O-levels. And I stood nervously in front of my mother with my results in my hand. After 10 years of privately educated, expensive education, I'd taken 11 O-levels. I could still feel the fear in my stomach, and I was sitting there trembling. I had to tell her that I passed just 2. What are you going to do now? She said to me. Only 2 weeks earlier, I'd had a vision. I'd had a plan. And I was way on my way to executing it. Throughout that period of time at that boarding school, they had a cadet force. And I joined the RAF cadets at 12. And every Friday afternoon, I would have very highly polished shoes and smart uniform, and I would be whisked off to the local RAF airdrome where we did things around flying. And occasionally I had the opportunity to get into an RAF Bulldog, a training aircraft, and do. He would ask me, the pilot would always ask me, what do you want to do today? Just aerobatics. Again and again, we would do loop-the-loops, barrel rolls, stall turns. It was a fantastic opportunity. I even got my glider's license through the Royal Air Force on a week's camp that I went away with. So, of course, I lived in Birmingham. I went to the Birmingham Royal Air Force Careers Office, and the RAF want 3 A's. They want aptitude, altitude, and attitude. I was a 3-star, 3A student. I passed all the tests that I needed to do to become a cadet. And that was going to be my opportunity to then move and do further qualifications to become the person that I wanted to be. So feeling quite comfortable and happy with where I'd got to. Mr. King, come in, please. And I went in front of this officer with all these things on it. He said, he looked at my paperwork and he said, I had an additional A. King, he said, you've got a history of childhood asthma. I said, yes, but no longer do I have suffered from that. It was just when I was a small boy. Sorry, son. We don't take asthmatics in the Royal Air Force. I think, if I remember rightly, I managed to hold myself together until I got out the door before the tears flooded down my face. And I stood shaking outside, sobbing inconsolably, with no idea what I was now going to do. So hours, 2 weeks later, I stood in front of my mum. And she said, what are you going to do now? I said, I don't know. I really don't know. And she said, we've done everything we can for you. We've invested in your education. It's up to you now. And she kicked me out. So at 16, with nowhere really knowing where to go, I went back to the town, Stourbridge, in the West Midlands of England, where I'd been at boarding school. So I knew a little bit about the town. And I found myself, with the limited money I had, I found myself some accommodation, sharing a room with a 75-year-old man. And with my wafer-thin CV, I went down to the local careers office and presented, I still remember the man's name, Martin Blackman. I presented him with this paper, A4. I didn't even make the second side of the sheet, with my achievements to date. And he took a look at it and he went, wow. Rejected by the first set of your parents, rejected by the second set of your parents, rejected by the RAF. I have the opportunity for you. Anyone who's been rejected this many times will make a fantastic trainee insurance salesman. Hallelujah! I had an opportunity. I was in. That career progressed. But I always felt slightly kind of uneasy about what I was doing. It was those times of selling products without any concern for the individual in front of you, make some money. It was a kill to eat kind of scenario. You may remember those days. So I got myself highly qualified. I became, in the UK, we have a thing called Chartered Financial Planner. I became a certified financial planner. Only 2 or 3% of the advisors in the UK have both those qualifications. But I still felt something was not quite right. We worked sort of fee only, we were still commissioned, and I wasn't really doing what I call proper financial planning. But at 25, I uncovered a dream. I thought, there's more to life than what I was doing at the moment. I still want to fly. So I went to the local airfield and I found out how I would learn to fly. And over the next 22 months, and it took me 55 hours and lots of studying and lots of qualifications, I got my wings. I became a private pilot. Suddenly, I felt a little bit more worthwhile. I achieved things. We then get to the millennium, year 2000. I didn't have a computer. I remember the fireworks going off in the back garden. We all had a good New Year's Day. And then I think maybe 6 weeks later, my relationship collapsed. And then we got to the Easter. And a few of my friends decided that we would ride our motorbikes through the lanes of England, through the tunnel, through France, into Belgium, to go to the Nürburgring in Germany, which is a motorsports complex that you can take any vehicle to and drive as fast as you like around perfectly legally. This obviously sounded like a great idea. I don't know whether BMWs in your country suffer the same problem that they do in England, but their indicators seem to only work sometimes. He did a U-turn in front of me. I was doing 30 miles an hour. I don't know if I can do the pointer thing, but can you see at the top of the BMW where there's a dimple? That's my head going into the BMW. I bounced off that and ended up in that ditch. Fortunately, not words I've been putting into this statement, but fortunately, there was a nurse walking down the road. I'd stopped breathing. She ran across the road. And for anyone who's ever done any first aid, you know you don't take the motorcycle helmet off the patient because of spinal injury. She whipped it off because I wasn't breathing, and there was no way she was going to get me breathing again with a motorcycle helmet on. I'd suffered multiple injuries. I'd broken lots of bones. I'd cut my eye, I'd lost some teeth, and I'd ruptured my spleen. I spent 10 days in intensive care in a Belgian hospital. Not so good. But it gave me the opportunity to contemplate my life and understand what I was trying to do. My friends had left me some magazines to look at. I can only tell you some of the titles. One of them was Yachting Monthly. I have some pretty fancy friends. I had never read Yachting Monthly. But as I lay there or sat there or whatever I was doing in the hospital bed looking at this magazine, I came across these beautiful pictures of beautiful yachts and beautiful boats and beautiful beaches and beautiful women. And I thought, you know what? That looks quite nice. That looks a good life. How can you... There's people doing that as a job. How would you do that? That might be being a financial advisor in Stourbridge. I'd done quite well at my career. The brokerage that I'd started at 16, I was now 30, I was a director of. I'd started as the tea boy and I'd managed to get to director level. But I was, in essence, still hunting clients and killing them. And I thought, okay, why don't I do something else? So I created another vision and I hatched another plan. So that happened in the Easter, and by the September, bizarrely, I don't know how this happens, luckily sometimes, but my local night school did a day skipper and a yacht master theory course. So I got a vision, I created a plan, I convinced the instructor that I could do both of those at the same time. One was on a Monday night, one was on a Tuesday night, and with some help with some friends who I knew, I started doing it. And I figured if people got a yacht for Christmas, I would help them with the January sales. No, didn't get it. Thank you. Thanks, Joe. But I got on yacht deliveries for free. I volunteered my services, I jumped on boats, and I got myself where I wanted to get to. And 2 years later, as we slipped our moorings off the southern coast of Sardinia, and I felt a gentle breeze on my back, and the sun glistened off the water, I turned to my crew and said, "This does beat being a financial advisor at Stanford." Now, if you only had 5 to 10 years left to live, and you were going to be perfectly well up until that moment, how would you live your life? I kind of had that question delivered to me. I'm not suggesting that my route to that question is the right route. It's a bit painful. But maybe to contemplate that if that was true for you, and you may be familiar with this question because it's one of George Kinder's questions, of course, but if that was true, how would you live your life? Does it make you put a different priority order on the way you currently live? So I was sailing, traveling around the world, financially afloat, having a great life. It was all good. And then I met a girl. And she said, as we were deciding and planning for a family, she said, "You better get a proper job." It's true. Sailing yachts for a living was not going to be the family man that I wanted to be and the father that I wanted to be. So the only proper job that I knew, of course, was financial advising. And one of the questions that I've had asked to me over the last couple of days as I've got to meet some of you of how do you design a financial planning practice that is perfect for your lives? And one of the suggestions that I would use, and one of the things that I use with my clients all the time, is just get a blank sheet of paper and write down what that would look like. And then there's your vision. And then you can work backwards to create the plan and the strategy you need to deliver to that. Because otherwise we create these beasts. I do quite a lot of consulting to financial advisors in the UK, and often the biggest issue is that we've created these beasts that become unwieldy and difficult. We have too many clients. We have lots of clients who aren't paying the fees that they need. We have people who aren't valuing what we do. It's complex. So just write down on a sheet of paper, if I was starting again today, what would that look like? And then step back. So I wanted to be an advisor who was asking better questions, because I knew up until that point had been unfulfilled. Let me tell you about a client called Dave who came to see me. Dave was 30, in the British Army. He referred by a fatherly friend, and he called me up and he said, "Look, can we have a meeting? I've inherited some money and I've made some mistakes. I need some help." So I met him at a beachside cafe. My business is quite close to the beach, well, it's literally yards away. And I met him at a cafe. And, hi Dave, how you doing? I've changed his name to protect his identity because he's in the British Army and his real name's David. So, Dave, look, I'm sure I can help you with this tax issue you've got, but what's the money for? Well, I'm not sure. Okay, Dave, what would a really truly fulfilled life look like to you? And after some thought and some contemplation and some quietness from me, he said, well, I'm dating this girl called Nikki. I'd like to get married. I'd like to have a family. I'd like to have a family home. Anything else? Well, he said, I'd like to be the head doctor of a unit of the British Special Forces. I didn't know whether he meant the top doctor or like a head doctor, but I kept quiet. And I said, oh, tell me more. He said, well, the thing is, I've gone through selection twice already, and I've been rejected twice. I thought to myself, well, I know all about this, so, you know, this is right up my street. I've been rejected by 2 sets of parents and the finest British military Air Force, so, you know. Tell me more, Dave. Well, you know, selection, it's really tough, etc. Okay. Anything else, Dave? Well, he said, look, it's funny you ask, because one of the things, to get to be a doctor, you obviously have to work pretty hard at school, and you do your O-levels, and then we do our A-levels, and then we go to university or medical college for him, and then he joins the military. So it's called very structured. He said, but the thing is, when I was a boy, I loved to paint. I said, oh, tell me more about that. He said, well, I'd love to do art, but I couldn't do art because you can't do art to get to medical school. It's not kind of one of the qualifications that they want. Thank God. So I then said, okay, so if as a consequence of the work that we do, just in 12 months' time, that you are that doctor at what was I saying? You're a doctor at Hereford. If you are the doctor at Hereford, if you've got the family home and Nikki's agreed to marry you and you've got the family home, you know, how would that be? He said, well, it'd just be fantastic. That'd be amazing. I'm like, well, okay. So let's create a strategy, let's create a plan, and you need to execute on it, Dave. But I'm going to be with you while you execute it. If you hit obstacles, I'm going to be here along the way. I met him 12 months later. Dave, how's it going? Brilliant, he said. Brilliant. He said, Nikki's agreed to marry me. She, by the way, thinks I'm the bee's knees. She's agreed to marry me, we've got the family home, and I've made selection. And I'm like, wow, what a year. What a year. So sometimes our clients' visions are there, but the thing that's stopping them moving ahead is just a little bit of fear. And if you've been kicked a couple of times, you didn't make selection, you kind of lose a little bit of faith. And all of a sudden, if you can have someone like us who believes in them and encourages them and helps them take the action to ask his girlfriend to marry him, then buy a house, then go for selection again. It's amazing what people can achieve. And we can be that person who helps lead people up the mountain and back down again safely. And then, of course, create the financial strategy to help them do that. So come back to me, I needed to set up a financial planning business that was going to be fit for purpose, my white sheet of paper. What was that going to look like? Again, I wanted to ask good questions. If you woke up tomorrow morning and everything was gone, your job's gone. In fact, the job that you do, this is a great question to take if you're asking clients this, your job not only is gone, that job doesn't exist any longer. Okay? But your job's gone, your house, everything. And instead of that, it's been exchanged for the monetary worth that it was all worth. You haven't lost any money. It's just a bag full of cash. What would you do? How would you live your life? And would you buy all that stuff back again? Because we're often constrained by the belongings that we have. And what we're trying to do here is get people to move to a position where they're free. Walt Disney used to call it, if you Googled the Disney strategy, he would just try to start with a white sheet of paper and just go, let's have lots of ideas about how we can do stuff before becoming too critical of ourselves and why we can't do stuff. We've got to start with a vision. So I wanted to be the type of advisor who would ask these types of questions. And then, if just financial restructuring their policies and their investments does not make people more fulfilled. And I often think if we're doing a jigsaw, if you was hundreds of thousands of pieces of a jigsaw, where do you start? Do you start with the corners? Do you start with the straight edges? Or do you start with the picture on the box? This is what we need to do for our clients, is help inspire them into a dream of a fantastic future. Because once we've got that dream of a fantastic future, we can then inspire them to live that. I also would love you to inspire clients by your own actions. Forrest Gump's mum, that wonderful philosopher. Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. What box of chocolates will you create for your life? If you're nuts about Brazils, do you just fill that full of Brazil nuts and throw away the toffees if you don't like the toffees? What box of chocolates will you create for yourselves? What priority order are the things that you're going to achieve? Last November, my wife said, she said to me, I'm going to enter an Ironman. I'm glad it wasn't the other way around. For those who are not familiar with the term Ironman, this is a triathlon. It's a bit of a nuts triathlon as well. I'll try and do it in K. It's a 3.8K swim. It's 180K, thank you, 180K bike ride, and then 42K, a marathon off the back of it. And I thought, you're nuts. She's a bit nuts, but like, that's just crackers. And then I thought, quite inspiring, isn't it? And I thought, I wonder if I could do that. And I'm like, no, my first came, no, I can't swim. I'm nuts. And then I went, well, okay, if you're going to be a proper coach, you've got to be able to coach yourself. So one of the questions you ask as a coach is a very simple one to take away, but just go, is it true? Now, I did have my 100-meter swimming badge. That wasn't true that I couldn't swim. And I had been a windsurfing instructor, and I was a volunteer lifeboatman for 10 years as well. But you know, if you have to swim a long way as a volunteer lifeboatman, you've got something wrong. So I thought, okay, well, I said to her, well, how far have I got to swim in the pool? They're like, how many lengths of our pool is it? And she said, I think it's just kind of, shut up, Gus. About 152 lengths or something. I'm like, whoa, that's nuts. So I then went, okay, well, let's go to the swimming pool and just see if I can swim. So I got in the pool and I did a length, and I'm like hanging on. Yes, I'm like out of shape, and I'm like, this is awful. Okay, what do you do if you coach people? What do you need? Well, you need generally someone to support you and probably some expertise. So I phoned we've got 2 girls, 10 and 8, and I phoned them. I phoned my children's swimming instructor. And I said, can you help me? And he came down and he kind of laughed. And he said, okay, well, he said, your catch is good, but your legs are lazy. I was like, okay, what does that mean though? Can I do it? He's like, well, you need to be fit. I was like, yeah, I know that. He said, how often can you come to the pool? I said, 5 times a week. Every morning, 5 mornings, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I won't do it at the weekends because I want to be with the kids. He said, you won't do it. He said, no one, everyone says that, you won't do it. That's red rag to a bull. I did. And I said to myself, and I said to my wife, I said, I can swim 50 lengths by Christmas. This was beginning December. If I can do 50 lengths by Christmas, I'm going to enter that Ironman with you. Not to compete. She's real fast. So fast that I think she's qualified for a GB shirt this year. So, you know, but to be part of it. I had a continual cold through the whole of December. And since I found out that I was allergic to the chlorine. And actually all you need is a nose clip and you're fine. But I did 50 lengths. I did it. I kept training, had lots of injuries. And in July 28th, Ironman finisher. So surrounded by lots of hamburgers, I was in Hamburg. I thought I might be the first, but I managed to do it. Kathy finished. The reason she looks so darn fresh here, and she had a shower, and she's had dinner, right? By the time we had this photo taken, was because she finished an hour and a quarter before me. But as I say, like, I actually had a hard day that day, didn't I? Because I was out there for 14 hours, and you were only out there for 13 hours and 3 minutes. So I think to do this work, to do the proper life planning, and this is our opportunity, if we can help people make that step, create a vision, and then create the financial strategy to get them there, we're never going to be extinct. We're always going to be that trusted advisor who's taking people from A to B. But be authentic about doing that. Be inspiring to them. Live your life plan. Create out your priority order. Share it with your clients. Because I'm sure if it's important to you, it'll be important to them. And I often say it's not important what someone's dream of the future is. I don't care how, they say to me, is this valid, is it important? I say, I don't care that how important it is, I just care that it's important to you. And not be in judgment of them, of what their dream of freedom is, what their dream of fulfillment is. So, thank you for listening to me. I'm looking forward to joining you for a coffee and a cake afterwards, and maybe you can tell me what would be in your chocolate box. Thank you.